she is. There you are. You were behind. I couldn't see you. Thank you for being here today.
Thank
We
you.
very much appreciate it.
Will you pray with me, please? Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you today for the beautiful day you've given us. May we remember that you've given it to us to live and enjoy. We've been reminded that your blessings come in many disguises, and we have been very blessed. They come in both the sunshine and the rain. May we delight in your blessings and live each day determined to know and follow your plan for our lives, individually and collectively. We thank you for the community that you've given us to live in. I ask that today you provide wisdom and guidance to our leaders as they make decisions for Leon County that affect us today and into the future. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Lindley. We've got Commissioner Maddox. I think you're up first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you remind me, I think I present the check first, correct? Not to you. Yeah, nice try. A proclamation? I'll go to proclamation first. Ms. Smith, come on up. As you all know, we had one of our own, Miss Brittany Smith, to win an ACE award. In our last meeting, I asked for her to be recognized through proclamation. Proclamation reading, whereas 34-year-old, I didn't do that. Look,
it's opening up real well, isn't it? That first line.
Whereas 34 years ago in historic town of Salem, Alabama, Brittany, Raquel Smith was born to Retha Smith and Jean Johnson. Yeah, nice names. Whereas by the time she reached 10th grade, Brittany knew she wanted to attend Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University in Tallahassee, Florida. Go Rattlers. And whereas working 25 hours a week while maintaining an 18-hour course load each semester, that's pretty impressive. Brittany graduated with honors from Florida A&M University with a MBA, becoming the first person in her family to graduate from college with a bachelor's and a master's degree. And whereas after having an illustrious career as business administration faculty and a business program director at Kaiser University, Brittany joined the Leon County government team as a public information and communications manager, where she has brought a compassion and professionalism to her work that earned her and her team the Inspirator of the Year for work on the annual Created Equal program. And whereas Brittany believes that helping others through volunteerism is not a luxury, but instead a marker for a life well lived. You said that? You said that? Yeah, she said that. All right. Whereas Brittany's passion for helping women and children has manifested itself in work as a big sister with Big Brothers Big Sisters of the Big Bend, serving as a professional mentor for the Capital Area Community Action Agency Getting Ahead program, serving on the board as treasurer of the Junior Women's Club of Midtown, serving as a career mentor through the Ladies Learning to Lead program, volunteering with Junior Achievement, where she teaches entrepreneurial skills to students at Godby and Rickers High School, serving on the board of directors of the ICE Foundation and the Jada Dion Parker Scholarship Committee, an organization near and dear to her heart because it was created by her friend Jada, passed away from cancer in 2013. And whereas on April 27, 2019, Brittany was honored by the Tallahassee Network of Young Professionals where their highest recognition, or with the highest recognition of Top ACE, was designated to the top professional under 40, she's 34, who exemplifies authentic community engagement in Tallahassee. Now therefore be resolved by the Board of County Commissioners that Brittany Raquel Smith be recognized and honored for her commitment to improving the quality of life for the residents of Leon County through her selfless volunteerism and inspiring demonstration of a life beautifully lived. This is signed by the chairman, the vice chair, as well as the rest of the commission, and attested to by the county administrator. Congratulations.
Thank you, Commissioner Maddox. Thank you, Commission. In my 34 years of life, I never thought that I would receive a proclamation from this wonderful board, and I'm very appreciative of it. From the beginning, I just said that I was thankful to even be thought of. You know, people don't have to think of you, let alone nominate you for an award. So I've been thankful throughout this whole process, and I'm thankful to be a part of the county under business leadership. The culture here is to be great on and off the job, and it's been great for this experience to work with CMR and with Matt and with this wonderful county family that's been so supportive and congratulative of my accomplishment. Even when most times I try to shy away, I really do appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, do we get to toast or roast Brittany?
I think it's only appropriate. Would you like to weigh in here, Commissioner Fox?
I'm asking that, while we was taking that picture, her little hand was shaking like a leaf on the tree. Let's just let her go on before she pass out. All right, next up, as FAC president, I get the opportunity to present a scholarship check to one of our county employees. I'm going to call up, I'm going to call up our executive director. Come on up. And Mr. Daryl Parks, I believe. Oh, Daryl Hall, I'm sorry, Daryl, come on up. I mixed you, I combined your name with Mr. Parks over in Parks and Crump. All right.
I can see
No,
the
you cannot.
resemblance of
His question was, can I have some of his money? No, you may not. As you all know, I was sworn in as FAC president during the 2019 annual conference last week. Each year, the incoming president can award a scholarship to an outstanding graduating high school senior from their county. I am pleased to award this scholarship to the student that knows firsthand about the commitment of public service from his parents. This opportunity was open to children of Leon County government employees, and I think we selected a dedicated scholar and a remarkable athlete to receive this scholarship. That's pretty awesome. I'm honored to present the FAC Presidential Scholarship Award in the amount of $2,000, which I wish I could use that, to Mr. Ryan Hall. Congratulations. Ryan is the son of Leon County EMS Deputy Chief Daryl Hall. He is a recent graduate of Leakin High School with a 3.3 GPA. Ryan was a member of the varsity football team, weightlifting team, track and field, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and student government. Ryan was accepted into 3 awesome Florida universities. He has chosen to attend the University of West Florida to pursue his degree and become a servant himself as he joins the Air Force ROTC. Thank you. After college graduation, Ryan will join the United States Air Force as a second lieutenant to become a criminal defense attorney in the Air Force. Impressive. And you all know my love of quotes, which I do. Now I'd like to share one of Ryan's favorite quotes from Shirley Chisholm, first African-American woman in Congress, 1968, and first woman and African-American to seek the nomination of President of the United States from one of 2 major parties. Service is the rent we pay for room on this earth. Congratulations, Ryan.
I'd just like to thank Commissioner Maddox and the Florida Association of Counties for giving me this prestigious scholarship. And I'd also like to thank my parents for being very supportive of me through this time as I transitioned from high school to college. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I thought I heard the president of Florida Association of Counties say 2,000, but that number is actually $2,500.
Well, actually, Commissioner Proctor, Ginger just told me that I was more important than Brian, so they gave me an extra 500, and I gave him 2,000.
So, you're going to get me fired.
I matched mine, Nick.
Nick, whip out that checkbook. Don't be outdone like that.
That's great.
In fairness, I think we need to give Nick a little love, too. He just got sworn in as Florida Association of Counties president. Represent us very well here. Great to have somebody in leadership there. Nice going. Okay. Consent agenda. We have anything pulled, Mr. Administrator?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, we have 2 items pulled from the consent agenda. Item 1 by Brian Deloge and item 5 by Commissioner Jimbo Jackson.
All right. I pulled item 1. Do we have a motion for the remaining of consent before we have a motion and a second for remaining consent? Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, there's consent. Okay, I pulled item 1 mostly just to say to Herb and Vince and Will Butler and the team, thank you guys for finally bringing us in for a landing. I know it's been, 5 years, 7 years. It's been a while. And it's a great example where governments should have common interests to a degree and end up just in a kind of a spitting match. And I'd like to think at some point Georgia, Florida, and Alabama on a larger scale with the Apalachicola River might be able to do the same thing, but that seems to have bigger ramifications. But I just wanted to say thank you. And I would entertain a motion to approve that. Or Commissioner Dozier?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I will make a motion for option 1.
We have a motion and a second. Yes.
And just to piggyback, I was going to save this for comment time at the end, but because item 1 and 5, Lake Talquin and the Grady Dam, these are issues that I remember in my year as chairman, I think in 2014, trying to deal with these issues. So I echo your comments. Good work on all parties for getting this done. I also, just tying this into our conference last week at Florida Association of Counties, I'm not sure if Ginger, our fearless leader, is still here, but FAC decided to pull all of our water issues into one committee. I've been appointed to that committee. Commissioner Maddox and your leadership and the boards decided to do this last year, and I am really excited about the work of this committee. We had a great meeting last week, but one of the key things that has stood out to me is that there's a lot of focus on blue-green algae and a lot of issues that are important to us, but not necessarily North Florida issues. There are members on that committee that continually look to us in North Florida and say, we don't want this just to be a Central South Florida issue. Tell us about your issues. And I've been able to mention Grady Dam and Talquin as those types of examples where we need to have better cross-border work with our neighboring states. Mentioned the BMAP process. That got a lot of discussion about Leon's success and working with the state on our BMAP process. And so all of these things that we were working on for years helped inform that committee last week. So just thought I'd mention that today. Thank you for getting this done, but it's also helping us move the ball forward, I hope, with the rest of the state. Great job.
I have a motion and a second.
Before you vote, I wanted to make sure that you saw Buddy Johnson, the Grady County Administrator, is in the audience, too.
Buddy, thank you. Yeah. Thank you for your leadership, and thanks for bringing this in for a landing. Yeah.
Can I ask a personal question? Is the fishing on Tart Lake superior to the fishing on Lake Talquin?
We're in Leon County, so I'd say Talquin.
I thought so. All right.
All right, we have a motion and a second for item 1 on consent. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? And we have 5 pulled by Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, the 5 is the acceptance of the emergency management plan for Lake Talquin. I know in my briefings, though in his absence, that Chairman Jackson was pulling this just to voice his support for the item.
Okay. Great, we have a motion, and I'll second it. Any discussion?
Well, I have one.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Proctor.
Some years ago, with respect to the flooding, and Herb, I can't remember what the number was, but as we're bringing this issue with Grady County to landing today, where are we with respect to that dam issue? And it looked like it just faded off the map. Is it still alive? We said ashes to ashes and dust to dust to it.
That one is likewise resolved, Commissioner.
It was. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Citizens to be heard. That's consent. Do we have any citizens to be heard, Mr. Administrator?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have several speaker cards on citizens to be heard under non-agenda items. The first is Sylvia Hubbard.
All right, Ms. Hubbard, name and address for the record. And in this, just a reminder for the commissioners, we don't interact. This is purely informational.
Sylvia Hubbard, 311 Gale Avenue. I am here with packages for everyone. They held a press conference down in Miami about Florida and the HIV/AIDS virus, and I'm here to solicit and ask for your support this year of $50,000 for information in the minority communities. And I just have 3 minutes, right? Okay. So I have a cover letter that you can read, as well as data to show that even though our numbers are not as large as Miami-Dade, because we have more than 200,000 students coming in and out of here, that we need to beef up what we're doing around HIV and AIDS, lest we become victims like Miami-Dade, an influx of HIV/AIDS. And I'll remind you that this year alone, I have told at least 2 18-year-olds that they are HIV positive. So we need the funding. And again, our numbers are not as Miami-Dade, but if we sit on it, it will be.
So you're asking us for funding?
I'm asking you for funding for a program, and it's all outlined in this package.
Very good. Very good. Very good.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Hubbard.
Additional speakers, commissioners, I believe are all on the same item. They've asked that we call them in a specific order, so please let me know if I get this order right, folks. First, Melissa Villar.
Hi there. I'm here to discuss cannabis with you. The Senate Bill 1020 was delivered to Governor DeSantis Friday. So effective July 1st, cultivation permits, rules are being established, and there's a meeting next Monday to discuss that. So what we would like is an appropriation for law enforcement to have the latest technology to test on site. So through Normal Tallahassee and the holistic cannabis community, businesses, hemp stores that are currently engaged in interstate commerce. So they would like to pull together and even support Leon County Sheriff's Office and local law enforcement to help provide, to help fund the latest equipment. Because this is what, when we met with Holly Bell, Director of Cannabis, Florida Department of Agriculture, the issue law enforcement are, talking about is how are they going to test it between hemp-derived and marijuana-derived. And so we're putting forth a proposal to actually be able to help fund law enforcement. And Holly Bell did receive word from federal government that they're looking to legalize cannabis for personal use by 2020. So we need to also address the adult civil citation program ordinance. It does need to be reorganized, reassessed, reevaluated, and so people are not arrested for 1 gram of marijuana. They need to be given, a citation for possession up to 1 ounce. So these are the things that we are working on, and we would like collaboration from the county commissioners in the county.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Dr. Sally Butan.
Thank you, Commissioners. Mr. Chair, may I please ask for a little bit of extra time? I have a very brief remark, and then we want to show a 3.5-minute video, if that would be permissible.
Very brief remarks, yeah, because we got more people. Sure.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I'm here. My name is Sally Butan. I live at 1628 Woodgate Way in Tallahassee. I'm here today representing the Community Action Committee of the United Church in Tallahassee. Like all citizens in Leon County, we are distressed by the rash of teen shootings, including the recent senseless death involving 15-year-olds over a 50-cent argument. Our church has long supported the concept of restorative justice, sparked by one of our members named Agnes Fury, who's written a book called Wildflowers in the Median and has spoken all over the world about the process of forgiving the man who murdered her daughter and grandson. And in collaboration with the Good Shepherd Catholic Church, United Church has screened a terrific documentary called Another Justice that was produced in France and features Agnes and others in our community, including our own state's attorney, Jack Campbell, who have used restorative justice practices for healing. This film has been shown all over Europe and has put Tallahassee on the world stage as a leader in restorative justice. And as it happens, this documentary also features a program for juveniles, for teens, right here at the Palmer Monroe Teen Center. It's called Community Connections, and this program helps teens learn how to effectively resolve conflicts through nonviolent communication. And I'm here to ask you to budget funds to expand this program into the Leon County schools. It's a crime prevention program as well as an education program. It's an important learning experience for our youth. When confronted with a situation where they feel threatened or disrespected, they lash out when that's the only thing they've learned to do. So this program gives them a weapon. When they have a weapon, lashing out is even worse. So this program will teach them a proactive vocabulary and model strategies to turn a tragedy into a face-saving win-win for everyone. It restores equilibrium and peace. So I'm going to show this brief film, and I think it'll explain it more. It's really a great program, and we need to expand it. Thank you.
Community Connections is a cutting-edge restorative justice program which aims to provide an alternative to our juvenile justice process of putting kids away.
I think one of the most interesting experiences I've had here is really just sitting with staff and seeing how passionate and enthusiastic they are about their program. As a clinical social worker, I've worked in systems where staff are really burnt out or they don't 100% believe in what they're doing. And coming to the center was really great because the staff here really believe in what they're doing, and you can feel that in every conversation you have with them. We are deeply committed to what we call a power sharing model. Everybody's voice is really important. All of our classes, all of our conferences are done in a circle. It levels the playing field, so nobody is considered more important than anybody else.
With our non-judgmental attitude, kids feel safe. They actually open up, and we get to see kids at their most vulnerable moments, but at the moments they are empowered to do things, to make decisions about their lives. And that's what I think Community Connections is. It allows kids to be able to take control of their life and be responsible for the direction it goes in a positive manner.
Having volunteers and community connections helps the program because at some point we do empathy, and having the volunteer keeps everybody honest. There's been so many volunteers that they get to put their voice in, and the kids in our program have the opportunity to hear from different perspectives and different walks of life or different backgrounds.
This program teaches you a lot more than most other programs. It actually helps you get in line with really who you are and helps you find your basic way around to be able to talk to people and never have to deal with being nervous or having to not know what empathy would be like in life, or not know how it would feel to have someone give you empathy.
This program is effective because instead of just doing therapy, you actually can connect with yourself and connect with others in a way that actually works.
With Community Connections, the way that it benefited our whole family, it brought us closer together and helped us to listen to one another better and not to be so quick to judge, and have more sympathy for one another and just really enjoy one another's company and just really be happy as a family.
The cornerstone of the Community Connections program is the nonviolent communication piece, which basically provides people with an opportunity to be heard. And the work is based on this philosophy that most people, all they really want is to be heard. And when they're heard really deeply, they're willing to hear others. And that's how we make peace happen in the world.
Great. Thank you, Sally. Yeah. And you might consider giving that to the school board, too, just as a thought. So, Mr. Administrator, next.
I have one more speaker card on this same item, Gemma Murphy.
All right, Jeremiah Murphy, address is 2040 Laurel Street. So hi, I'm Jeremiah Murphy. I'm a volunteer for Community Connections, and I represent the Friends of Community Connections. Our nation has a trauma and violence epidemic. Tallahassee's Community Connections is an innovative and effective solution. With a little investment, we envision Leon County being a national leader in reducing this violence. Take, for example, a recent tragic shooting highlighted by the Democrat. The argument started over 50 cents and ended with two teens killing a young man. How can such a tragedy come from a seemingly small conflict? Brain research shows that when you've had trauma, and especially sustained trauma, the part of your brain that is designed to determine safety is out of whack and is often quick to respond with either fight, flight, or freeze. Trauma is everywhere, and this is why we see this fight, flight, or freeze response everywhere. Community Connections is a diversion program that teaches juvenile offenders and us volunteers how to minimize fight, flight, or freeze responses. We learn to recognize the feelings that we have in the moment, the unmet needs that give rise to these feelings, and how to hear one another. This naturally leads to conflict resolution. In short, we learn to slow down and use our higher level brains to circumvent these tragic conflicts. I highly encourage you to attend one of the Community Connections graduations. The transformation in these kids is phenomenal to witness, and it transforms us as we volunteer as well. So what I recommend is let's not wait for these tragedies to splash across the newspapers. Let's expand Community Connections into the schools and circumvent the violence before it gets out of hand. Dr. Cindy Bigby, the director of Community Connections, had the vision to combine restorative practices with an empathy and conflict resolution practice called nonviolent communication. For this pioneering work, she recently received a prestigious award at the National Association of Community and Restorative Justice and is often invited to perform restorative justice and nonviolent communication training at schools across the country. We have a solution to violence in our own backyard, and the results speak for themselves. For example, incarcerating kids is really expensive, it turns out. It costs about $150,000 per kid per year, and unfortunately 70 to 80% of them return to jail after being released. We are failing our kids. We need to find another way. In contrast, the return rate to incarceration for Community Connections, juveniles is only 12%. This is a phenomenal reduction. With the current caseload, Community Connections is already saving our community about $600,000 per year in incarceration costs, and that doesn't mention the hope and inspiration we're giving back to these kids. And probably the most telling metric of success is that nearly 30% of the kids come back as volunteers. And in fact, we have basically 95% of the kids would love to come back, but they don't have access to transportation. A few restorative justice programs have been introduced in public schools, and they are witnessing dramatic drops in violence, suspensions, and expulsions. Our proposal is straightforward. The basic proposal is to replicate the success of Community Connections in the school system. This would require 3 new employees, a director, and 2 restorative practice specialists. For only $220,000, we can teach these life-altering skills to hundreds of Leon County school kids. Our specific ask is for the city, county, and Leon County schools to collaborate in this endeavor. Why are we asking all 3 local government entities to collaborate? In short, this is not a city problem. This is not a county problem. This is not a school's problem. These are our kids, and we have a collective responsibility to find a solution. For example, one possible solution is for the school system to hire the director of restorative practices. The county and the city would each provide funds to hire 2 restorative practice specialists. We have a clear collective need for safety. We have a ready-made solution in our backyard, and we have a specific proposal. Let's work together to expand the solution and lead the nation in reducing the epidemic of violence. Thank you so much for your time and consideration for this.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Administrator, any more speakers?
That concludes our speakers.
All right, let's move on to general business.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, your first item on general business, item number 13, seeks the board's approval to schedule 2 public hearings to consider an ordinance which will encourage the use of solar energy systems as an alternative and sustainable source of renewable energy by providing a minimal and expedited permitting process with minimal permit costs for prospective applicants and by establishing a new section in the Land Development Code. The item also requests the board's authorization to initiate an out-of-cycle text amendment to the comp plan to allow for solar energy systems as provided in the draft ordinance. As you can see, we've had lots of staff that have addressed different sections of this item, and any of them would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Commissioner Minor is in the pipe to speak.
Thanks. That would actually ban power purchase agreements and basically restricted net metering. For the one thing I'd like to request is for the first public hearing agenda item, if we could have a description of that current environment. I know Amendment 1 failed in 2018, which was good news for the solar industry, but I'm not really up to speed yet on what the current state of things is with regard to the Florida statutes. This is terrific for us in Leon County. When it talks about neighborhood scale installations, I need more clarification on how Florida statutes would enable neighborhood scale installations to be able to enact, power purchase agreements.
Great. We'll do that.
Great. Any other questions? Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Commissioner Minor, good question on that note, and I was just trying to scroll back through, Ms. County Administrator. I don't think I noted this in the item. Power purchase agreements are, in the state statute, is one general category. We have specific utilities that could be supported by an agreement like that, meaning the city utilities, Talquin, others. So just to piggyback on what you said, Commissioner Minor, I think it would be good for us to have an understanding now or in the future about how the city might work with a neighborhood solar project of that kind, how Talcon might work with that. I mean, that's really the key piece that I've run into prior to my time on the commission, that you couldn't share power between buildings and things like that within city utilities. There were some safety concerns, other things like that, but I think other communities have gotten up to speed on that, and perhaps the city has as well. So if you don't mind, I'll just add that to the request, Mr. County Administrator, if we can get any information, and the city may not have it at this time, but at such time as they do, that would be helpful.
All right. We have a motion and we have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Great. Motion carries. Thank you. Next up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 14, Commissioner seeks board approval to award a bid to construct a new parking lot for the Goodwill drop-off location on Meridian Road, as the existing parking lot will be impacted by a county cross-drain project under Meridian. The item has been budgeted, and the recommended vendor was the low bidder and met our WMBE goals for this project.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify. Pardon me, Commissioner Proctor.
I want to ask, is this like the unofficial holding pond for when Meridian Road flows over this parking lot?
The project that we will be constructing is a project to mitigate that flood condition right where you're talking about, Commissioner. And we're able to utilize a portion of the property which is in private ownership across the street from John Hancock Drive and Meridian Road, where the current Goodwill donation location is located.
Are there any dimensions that of engineering is presented?
This item today is simply on the reconstruction of the parking lot, the existing parking lot that we will need. I believe the project, and I'm looking over down, has already been before the board or is coming before the board?
The next phases, commissioners, will be coming in the future. There'll be 2 or 3 more bids to the west side of the road for the holding that Commissioner Proctor is speaking of.
For the actual project itself.
Will be on the west side of the road.
That project will be coming back to you. Yes, this is simply for the relocation of the parking lot.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Next up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next item seeks the board approval to award a bid for the roof replacement of the Leon County Detention Facility. You may recall back in May, we recommended that the board reject the very high bids that we received at that time, which were particularly high due to the busy time that we were facing after Hurricane Michael. This low bid is $770,000, or 78% lower than the bid that this board rejected back in May. Wow. So at this point in time, we're recommending option 1, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Point of information.
Yes, sir, Commissioner.
I saw a different number than Ms. County Administrator, what you recited. I thought it was at $695.
I've got $770. Alan, do you want to? Can you instruct us, Commissioner Proctor, what you're referring to?
I guess I'm looking at the Office of Economic Vitality, the assessment from Mr. Darrell Jones, our Deputy Director, which has Southland Road total bid amount $695.
I think you're looking at the bid amounts. I was simply saying that this current bid is $770,000, or more specifically $771,000 less than the bid we rejected back in May.
Vera, what is the amount that we're approving to spend?
Let me get to that. $990,000.
Very well. Okay. Thank you.
You good? Commissioner Minor, was that from before?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to commend and thank county staff for managing this issue and acting so quickly. I mean, we rejected the initial RFP just a month ago, and when we were reviewing this with the county administrator and deputy county administrator, I was real surprised pleasantly how quickly we were able to get the subsequent bids that are saving us money, saving taxpayer dollars.
So we're saying that the timing after Michael is what drove the Okay.
All right, we have a motion and we have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you. Next up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner, this next item seeks board's approval for an agreement with Sentinel Offender Services for electronic monitoring equipment and services for GPS and alcohol monitoring, which is performed by the county's Office of Intervention and Detention Alternatives. Funding is available pending board approval of the FY 2020 budget. We're happy to answer any questions you might have.
We have a motion by Commissioner Lindley, seconded by Commissioner Maddox. Commissioner Proctor, you had a question?
Yes, I want to ask staff, what reports of difficulties have we received related to electronic monitoring, their access to the courts, the ability to track and in a timely way receive reports back to the courts? Have there been any notices shared with this company as to their delinquency or capacity to be responsive to the courts?
Commissioner, if I'm clear on your question, you're inquiring whether or not if there are difficulties with the equipment, is that information shared with the courts?
As well as the responsiveness of the companies to respond back to the court for certain data that they're seeking.
I think the answer is yes to both. Generally, the courts don't question the equipment as much as whether or not it is tracking the offender in the manner that they've requested, ensuring that they don't go to certain zones that they were prohibited from entering. But we do work with the entity if there's an issue with the equipment or the service area. Sometimes it's cellular service is not good in some of the rural areas, and we may need to switch to a different cellular service provider to ensure we're able to get a good connection with the device.
Well, the spirit of my question is to make sure that we have a company with which has been accountable to the courts, and when we are seeking to track or we lose track of certain persons, that this is not a company that has been derelict in securing those persons who have been released on monitoring. One of the things that will, which mitigates against the court participating in monitoring, is if we have a company that ain't able to monitor.
Right.
So that's the sensitivity of making sure that we keep a very accountable company that the judge is able to sign a sheet of paper, put their name, and continue to take the stress and pressure from overcrowding of the jail. If this company is weak and can't be found, can't get what the judge is looking for, we would have a lot more people out there in the jail. And that's the spirit of what I'm seeking.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any other questions? Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Any opposition? Motion carries. Next up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, item number 18 seeks the board's consideration of revised board appointments to the CRTPA once a year. As we noted in this item, Commissioners, the board may revise your membership on the CRTPA. Currently, the county has 3 commissioners serving, and Commissioner Deloge has expressed a desire to serve on the CRTPA. The item provides the board with an option to expand your membership.
Move option 1, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and a second. Commissioner Dozier.
Just quick comment, wanted to bring it forward into our discussion here, what we mentioned at the CRTPA meeting yesterday. I'm thrilled that you want to serve. Welcome back to the board, Commissioner Deloge. And you did sit in with us yesterday. Thank you. In the last maybe 6 months, Commissioner Maddox, I think that's right, the CRTPA board took a vote to change our voting structure from the weighted vote, which gives the county the ability to have as many members or as few as we want, maybe as little as 2, but I mean have some room to maneuver within that in a pretty easy switch as we would do today. Move that to 1 member, 1 vote. And if the new structure were approved by all the counties and the cities that are members of CRTPA, that would limit us to 3 members. This has not been approved by all counties yet. It certainly hasn't come to our board, but I just wanted to mention it here that the discussion at the CRTPA board, it was based on some legislation that was introduced in 2018 that didn't move forward. And we typically, as you all know, collaborate and agree and support our neighboring counties. So none of us thought it was a problem to go to 1 member per vote. But if we want more than 3 members, we're going to have to reflect on that decision and perhaps make a change in September. So I just wanted to mention it here. I'm thrilled that, again, that you would want to join us, and I'm happy to continue to serve. I'm sure Commissioner Maddox and Commissioner Minor are in the same boat, so we can just take it back up in September if that's comfortable with everyone else, depending on what the other counties decide.
Yeah, and after sitting through 2.5 hours, I question my, In fairness, I am interested. I mean, I think you guys are doing some good things, and if the history was, we had all 7 of us on there for so long, and then finally and not all 7 made it on a regular basis, yet all 7 had to be there for the weighted vote. And so having 3 that are there on a regular basis, and I don't want to replace anybody, so thank you. Appreciate that.
Well, Mr. Vice Chair, I will say it's much more fun now, isn't it? We're doing a lot more work. I don't know if fun's the right word, Commissioner Maddox, but we've made tremendous progress since you were last on the board. So I think we can continue to do that, and would love to have you sit there with us.
All right. We have a motion and we have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, the final item on your general business agenda seeks board appointments to the Architectural Review Board, the Board of Adjustment and Appeals, the Career Source Capital Region Board, as well as the Planning Commission. Eligible applicants are listed in options 1 through 4. If it's helpful, Mr. Chairman, option 1 seeks your appointment of 2 recommended eligible applicants to the Board of Adjustment and Appeals, and A and B provide you with the eligible applicants who are seeking appointment.
I'll take this one option at a time.
I move option 1.
I have a motion for option 1.
Second.
And there's a second. Any discussion on that? Commissioner Maddox, did you want to speak on that?
No, actually, I was going to make a motion for Willie Van for option number 4, but I mean, if you don't want to take it up, I have to wait.
Yeah, let's do one at a time. How about that? It was a little cleaner in my opinion. Okay, so we have motion for option 1. Any other discussion on that? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Okay, so that's option 1. Option 2.
Thank you.
There's only one candidate. Okay, so Beth Cicchetti.
Second.
All right, for Career Source. Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second?
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Architectural Review Board. I would second that. Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion
I didn't know where Erin Van Sickle lived at. Does she live in our county?
She lives in your district. She might live in your district, Commissioner Proctor.
She's in District 5, but she's close to District 1, if that helps.
No, I just looked at the background materials, and I couldn't make out if she lived in Tallahassee or not. Mr. Chairman, on option number 4, I'd like to nominate Leroy Collins Proctor.
I would second that. Is that a substitute motion, or we have 2? We only have one of the 2.
Well, I wouldn't substitute. I'd like to hear the substantive thoughts of Commissioner Maddox, and I would be willing to present the substantive thoughts on Mr. Collins Proctor.
Mr. Van actually moved here. Actually, you know what? Well, let's have him speak for himself. Mr. Van, you want to come up real quick and tell the board a little bit about who you are and your motivations, what you've done here since you've been here? Name and address for record, please, sir.
Willie Van. I reside at 3336 Harbor Club Drive. Moved to Tallahassee roughly about 3 years ago from the city of Birmingham, the great city of Birmingham, Alabama. I work for Pitney Bowes. I managed operations and IT sales people for the northern Florida and lower Georgia area. We have a program, software program for Google and also Facebook. I'm stationary out of the Crawfordville area. I have different sites with the state of Florida here in the city. And my interest in the Planning Commission followed me for Birmingham. In Birmingham, I served as the United States Postal Service president for over 8 years. I was involved with the development of the Intelligent Mail Barcode with the Postal Service. Prior to that, I was a neighborhood president in the city of Birmingham for 12 years. I created the first reading program in Birmingham for after-school students. Some other involvement was served as the Catholic vice president within my community. I served on also the Red Cross board, and I'm affiliated with the Breast Cancer board here already. I also serve on the code enforcement for the county. Why do I want to get involved in the planning? I foresee a growth opportunity for the county, and I foresee an energy that need to unstifle some of the growth opportunity that we have. And I'm willing to give all myself, all 150% of it, to my devotion to the city of Tallahassee. I like the city, and I enjoy being here.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, Mr. Van. Commissioner Proctor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Van. I'm certainly can compliment the awesome experience and range of experience that Mr. Van brings to our community. And I am certain that I could support and would believe in his range of talents for one of our boards. You say he moved here 3 years ago?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And his familiarity in having moved here 3 years ago to serve on one of our community's most important boards, the Planning Commission. And that's not to say that if his name was to be elected by citizens, but 3 years familiarity with this community, its complexities, our background. I think that Mr. Leroy Collins, who's a name like that is on our library system, there's history that can't be replaced, that shouldn't be ignored. And coupled with the name Proctor, it can't be replaced. And certainly it shouldn't be ignored. And those combined reasons and the power of a name representing two unique, extraordinary families and services extended generations is compelling for planning. And I like what Mr. Vance represents, what he brings. But Mr. Proctor, Collins Proctor, is a richer candidate, in my opinion, for this position at this time. So, Commissioner Maddox, that's why I'm not challenging in any way. I just have to vote my own convictions.
Was your motion a substitute motion?
No, it was. I just placed another name, and I wanted to hear what the 2 points of view.
I tend to agree with Commissioner Proctor just from a standpoint I grew up with Collins. I seconded it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You seconded Bill.
I seconded Commissioner Proctor's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Commissioner Dozier.
I did second Commissioner Maddox's motion for the discussion. I mean, these appointments, I will say, it's challenging. We get a list, and we all know this, we get a list of really qualified, good people, and we all know a lot of times first person at the mic, gets to move forward into the discussion with that name. So I appreciate, and I concur with all your comments, Commissioner Proctor. I know that will shock you. Ms. Brown, thank you for stepping up today. Thank you for your quick service to our community. I have also worked with Mr. Proctor a lot over the years, more as community and seen his work in the community, and I think he would be a valuable member for the commission. I have seconded the previous motion. I would actually support Mr. Proctor given this discussion at this time. So
I see. I kind of see where this is going.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Van, I know personally, and he right now serves on the Code Enforcement Board. I think he'd be happy to continue to serve there to avoid us having to take a vote on two people. I'll just rescind my motion to thank Mr. Van for his willingness to serve on our Planning Commission and his continued service to our Code Enforcement Board.
I will echo that, Mr. Van. Thank you very much. I know there will be other opportunities, and I will make a motion for Collins Proctor for the Planning Commission.
Sorry, mate.
No, we didn't have a motion.
Okay. I
It was
thought
just a
Commissioner Proctor
suggestion.
No,
So
I nominated him. Do we have to make a motion?
Yes, we have to make a motion.
Okay, I defer.
Okay, so you've got a motion.
Got a motion on the table for Mr. Proctor.
And I'll second that. That's
Thank you.
fine.
That just sounded good. Dozier got a motion on the table for Mr. Proctor. You ought to repeat that more often, Dozier.
Yeah, and let me echo the comments earlier, Mr. Van. Thank you for your service, and we will continue to keep you busy if you're willing. So thank you. Glad to have you in Tallahassee. We have a motion for Collins Proctor on the Planning Commission. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you. That's it for and I guess that's it as far as general business, right? Why don't we do round robin as far as commissioner comments, and we can go ahead and get that out of the way. And I'm going to be a little bit more methodical than Chairman Jackson is. I'm just going to come down the line. Commissioner Minor, what would you like?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess since I'm speaking first, I get to be the first one to congratulate Commissioner Maddox for becoming president of the Florida Association of Counties last week. Well-deserved, and I've seen him in action. He's going to do a great job at the Florida Association of Counties, and looking forward to his leadership at the state level. One thing I've also noted, and I know you all have seen this, many folks around this committee have seen this, is that Leon County really does have a leadership at the state level, national level. Commissioner Deloge just recently finished his stint as president of National Association of Counties, but it goes beyond that. Last week we had our Florida Association of Counties conference, and yet again I was reminded of just how talented Leon County's county commissioners and staff are. Our county administrator, Vince Long, is constantly presenting courses to new county commissioners that come in. Our county attorney, Herb Deal, is legendary for his ethics training at the Florida Association of Counties. And other staff like Matt Cavell, Kevin Peters have presented on Emergency Management 101. As someone who was a private citizen until just recently, now that I work for the county, it's really impressed upon me how the expertise and the leadership and the talent of our county commission, of our county staff, play a role at the state level. And I just wanted to recognize that. This is a really special county government. And if you don't work for the county, you don't see that. You don't see those signs as clearly as you do as if you were to go to a FACT conference. So I just wanted to kind of acknowledge that for everybody here. This is a really incredible team. Also wanted to recognize Mr. Charlie Holland, who is our intern at the District 3 County Commission office. Charlie, great to have you here.
Should we ask him to come up and give a small speech, Charlie?
No, I didn't tell him about this before.
Thank you.
But I won't put you on the spot for this meeting. But Charlie's lived in District 3 for almost his entire life. He's going to be starting 9th grade at Leon High School this fall. He will be a 4th generation Leon High School student. In his off time, free time, he tutors 4th graders at Kate Sullivan before school in the mornings. And this actually resonates with me. He has organized food drives for hurricane survivors. And a fact about Charlie here is that he's a Rubik's Cube speed solver, which means he is really incredibly fast at solving Rubik's Cubes. He can solve a Rubik's Cube in about 19 seconds, but the fastest he's ever done it is 12.64 seconds. So incredible. Just wanted to welcome Charlie to the county government. Great to have you here. And I think before you leave, you might be actually doing a demonstration of Rubik's Cube solving before you leave us. So, Charlie, welcome. Welcome. Good to have you here. And then lastly, this is totally not related to anything that we do, but as as a lifetime Beatle fan, I would be remiss if I did not say happy birthday to Paul McCartney, who turned 77 years old today. I know he's watching online, so I just want to say happy birthday, Paul. And that's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Minor. And us Leon grads, we raise the IQ with the rest of these guys, don't we? Commissioner Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Certainly, the Grambling feed and supply store is going out of, they're leaving us. And I'm not sure what the proper gesture would be. Maybe the chairman request that a chairman's letter reflective of the board's appreciation of the more than 100 years of service that that family had provided, something appropriate. And I'm thinking of some kind of letter that touched on the right notes.
Proclamation. You want to do a proclamation?
We did do a proclamation
we did
years
one
ago
for-
when they, I think, celebrated their 100th anniversary.
We did.
I remember
and,
bragging Stan Gramling in here.
Yeah. I'm just
I mean, we
thinking-
could send them a letter, but they're shutting down. It's kind of a little hard to say congratulations on your, finishing.
Well, how about a thank you from the citizens who...
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you guys feel, but thanks for your service.
Yeah, something like that. That's a request. They've been down there in District 1.
Why don't we have
everybody.
the district commissioner could send them a letter and just thank them for their, years of service in the community.
I really would like for the Board of County Commission, not the district, because they've actually serviced the region. I heard my mother make comments that her grandfather purchased farm items from there when she was a girl. And I never thought about how wide the reach of that supply and feed store was. And I think for the entire county, and maybe North Florida, they have provided. So I could definitely go by it. But I think that we should, as a county government, respect an entity that has given 100+ years of service. And we just thank them for what they've done.
What's the will of the board? Letter from the chairman? Okay, just thanking them for their service and their long-term business. Okay. All right, do we need a motion for that?
Okay, so move.
Okay. All right, without opposition. Okay, what else, Commissioner Proctor?
The congratulations to Commissioner Maddox. I know it's going to be an exciting year. I missed that party, and we're going to have to figure out how to make up for that. You do? Nothing with Paul McCartney now? Okay. Great, okay. We'll make up for that. The Adult Civil Citation Program, what is the standing right now, the citation program? Is it viable? Has the state attorney killed it?
It's in operation.
It is. Do you still have to admit guilt before you can use it?
I don't know, having not been a participant in the program. It's the last I heard was yes.
Okay.
Ms. Hunter knows a little more than I do. That
what can we do to make it viable without people having to impugn themselves? And once you admit guilt, it's the discretion of law enforcement, state attorney, whether he wants to prosecute. If you roll the dice and do that and get put in jail, arrested, and then you've compromised your standing.
I think that was one of the concerns before the state attorney revamped the civil citation program. The way it's structured now, law enforcement will make a person aware that they're eligible to participate in the program. Then the state attorney reviews the actual affidavit and makes a determination whether or not it's appropriate for them to participate in that program, some other diversion program, or go the trial track. So they don't necessarily admit to anything. The law enforcement has the option of making this available to them, and then the state attorney makes the final decision.
Could we get like our board get an update of where we are with this policy? It has been, it's been looped around and in different shades, and right now I honestly don't know the status and the dynamics of, and I'm asking if all of us could get a re-up on the civil citation program, if possible.
Too.
Yeah.
I think it first wasn't implemented in 2014 maybe, and I think you did have to admit guilt to a misdemeanor possession and so forth.
Yeah.
And then with the speaker earlier asking us to take a look at our civil citation ordinance might be a good time to just sort of wrap all that up with what she was requesting earlier on the cannabis regulation changes. It might be time to look at that and see what's.
Would you like a status report on that then, potentially?
Yes.
On civil citations?
Yeah. Where are we? It's been movement, then it froze, and the new state attorney had problems with it, and I honestly can't tell constituents. I really can't speak authoritatively about it, and we need clarification.
All right, is that a motion for a status report on?
So moved.
And a second by Commissioner Lindley? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I know at great risk to our collective credibilities, we've been down this road and I know 20 grams of marijuana is a misdemeanor. I'm not sure if it's always a misdemeanor or if 20 grams is a discretionary thingy. But with the continuing relaxation movement of marijuana, and we have almost gotten to a society where the issue of hemp, marijuana, hemp flowers, marijuana flowers, you saw where the elderly lady was arrested at Disney World, who came with hemp for her aching body. In North Carolina, it was legal, but in Disney World, it was not. And these different variations and gradations of legality of marijuana is just really getting to be complex. I don't know if anyone other than myself pays attention to marijuana, the different gradations of criminality or the lack. It's just a matter of where you are in Florida as to how wrong you may be. Obviously, the legislature will not man up and equalize the playing field. We still have hundreds of college students in Leon County. If you come from South Florida and you drive here, the rules are different. And if you bring your understanding from Tampa, Broward, Miami, Palm Beach, and you come to Tallahassee, and what you do there is okay, and what you do here ain't okay. And it's just bad that Florida continues to allow for this kind of, for the 14th Amendment to be diced and spliced and made geographic applicable. And it's almost like the equal protection of the law. I mean, the same laws, it simply ain't equal everywhere. And I'm asking commissioners in this discussion matter your thoughts here with respect to our decriminalizing marijuana, that ours might not be the most excruciating punishment in Florida, but that we would become a lot more humane and empathetic, compassionate, and recognize that this is a substance that has gained medical support. It has become medicinally adopted by statute, and even the merits for its recreational use are expanding in all. And I'm simply wondering, are we in step with the pace of the medical designation to marijuana and all the other stuff? You've been reading papers as I have. I would love to see us take this item up, but before making that motion, I'd like to hear your feedback. If the chairman would permit that, I would like to see it come back, but I don't want to make it a motion if it's DOA.
All right, I've got Commissioner Maddox and then Commissioner Dozier.
Hey, Mr. Chair, I think we had this conversation before, Commissioner Proctor, as I remember, I think a lot of it had to do with the other partners that we had at the table when it came to actual enforcement. I kind of agree with you in a way and going to look at, I don't know if the word is decriminalization, but definitely looking more at a civil citation program for marijuana than what we have in place right now, which I think what some of the conversation, Commissioner Loge and Commissioner Dozier and Commissioner Lynn, I believe you're here as well, was around the fact that that option already exists now for officers, but I think I like to take it a step further and formally, I like where you're going and formally making it a charge that warrants civil citation first. And so I do like what you're talking about, like the direction you're trying to move in. But in order for us to get there, I believe there are a lot more partners that have to be at the table besides us just putting it down. And so we would have to hear from our partners in law enforcement as well as the state attorney's office and how they would like to partner with us on it. So I do like the direction you're going. I think it's time for us to move in that direction as well.
You think that if the county attorney is able to bring something back, that maybe this is something that we should perchance distribute that where we are, that finding, look at what's occurring across the state, look at the literal non-equality of law being different across the state. And certainly as the president of the Florida Association of Counties, your perspective and sight over the entire state, you recognize it ain't the same. It's a shame. And we have college kids coming to this community. And I recall, Commissioner DeLoge, I forgot what city we were in, but we knew someone who had a difficulty in this community with that law, which that same kid would not have experienced in the county that they were from. And maybe we need to have a workshop to find out if there's been intellectual movement, embracement, or openness to the idea of decriminalization of marijuana that has moved consistent with what voters have adopted, and even for an embracement of its medicinal designation in our community.
How about, just as a suggestion, we do a status report, and if that triggers enough of a discussion, that we can take it to the next level. I brought up, I can tell you, I had a good friend of mine who had a son here at Florida State who got caught with a freshman in college, got caught with a joint of pot. And when they called and said, oh my, this is terrible, I said, it's civil citation, you're fine. We're going to go through a diversion program, you pay a penalty, it's the equivalent of a really harsh speeding ticket. And then I looked at it a little closer, and I looked into the system. Oh no, FSU, he got booked. He lost his housing, he lost his bright futures. I mean, it was a train wreck, and it's all the things you don't want. And to your point, we need to have, civil citations are a great idea. We have 26 arresting authorities in Leon County, so it's very complicated, and it's difficult for us. We can't just mandate and to take away the officer's discretion, because every arrest is a little different, and if the kid comes out swinging at him, it's low odds you're going to get civil citation because you compound it, or they run. There's things that happen in the heat of the moment, and how does the cop, the arresting officer, lose his discretion? But I'd support certainly let's have a status report, have a discussion about it, or maybe an agenda item, have a discussion about it, and then see where it goes from there. But yeah, Commissioner Dozier? Yeah, sorry.
That's okay, Mr. Vice Chair. I actually, for me, I'm not sure the status report is going to get us anywhere at this moment. And I'll let you know, and Commissioner Proctor, this may surprise you too. I know you've brought this up a few times in the last year, and you have piqued my interest. Ms. County Attorney, I remember your comments about, if I have this right, not being able to change the Schedule I status for cannabis here locally, for sure. I mean, we've seen this shifting across the state in a lot of ways. So I have to thank my Gary Zirin for working on this a good bit in the last few months. We reviewed all of the municipalities and counties in Florida, and it looks like there's about 17 between 2015 and 2019 that have done some type of decriminalization, if you want to use that word generally. I'm not the lawyer, so I don't know exactly, but a lot of them do reference civil citation. So I think even an agenda item looking at what these other communities have done and whether or not our civil citation system is already got us in a posture that is equivalent to what they have. A lot of them simply give police, sheriffs, the other entities the discretion to use that program. Some of them are just straight up fines for under 20 grams. So it is, there are some differences between the cities and counties, and we've looked at a little bit of how they have worked, these different ordinances have worked, the ones that were passed in 15 and 16 in different communities. So I am interested in moving forward, but I'd really like to see whether or not we already have policies in place that look like a lot of these 17 communities within the civil citation. Ms. County Administrator, you're nodding. Does that sound like a fair
policy was the basis of most of those programs. It was the first one. It's what Broward and Palm Beach modeled their ordinance off of. It's not to say that a status report wouldn't be good at this time. It is true that we haven't revisited, but as has been said, we have an active adult civil citation program for anything under 20 grams at the officer's discretion currently.
So thank you, Mr. County Administrator. Just to build on that a little bit, I think more education, more encouragement for our various law enforcement entities to be in lockstep on how we deal with a certain quantity might be needed. I had a brief conversation with Sheriff McNeil about this, and I wanted to hear some of his thoughts before bringing it up. But one of the things I mentioned to him was the supervised pretrial release item that we had a couple months ago. Reading through that report, what really stood out to me, and the sheriff echoed this, that his, the deputies, and I'm sure this is true for TPD, that trying to deal with the medical marijuana and who is legally allowed to have the medical marijuana versus other types, and whether or not you have that documentation with you is a challenge. And in that supervised pretrial release document, you will see charges for medicinal marijuana. I'm concerned about that as another issue, that we've got a double standard. Those who register for medical marijuana can afford those costs. Well, that's legal for them. For other people, it is not legal, and they're getting caught up in the same system. So I think there are a lot of overlapping issues here. Sorry to lean into this a little bit more. I really appreciate the discussion here, but I think it's even more complicated than just doing a civil citation or decriminalization. That's what I've come to think in the last few months of looking at this. So if you can help me bring this in for a landing, I think getting a status report that digs in a little bit more to the civil citation, to any options for encouraging our law enforcement partners to use that, and other issues we might want to take up would be very interesting to me. Last piece, Commissioner Lindley, I think you mentioned this, the hemp and cannabis legalization and that process. I'm very happy about this. I've got a meeting with Holly Bell, our cannabis director, next week. And that issue, the testing, she'll be in rulemaking for the first 3 to 6 months after, or if the governor, signs the bill. So we could see permits coming as early as, January of next year. This testing issue may be something conducted through Department of Ag for people who are growing it and other things. So I want to learn more from her and from the rulemaking before we were to spend money for law enforcement to do that, but she may have other information on that piece, so.
So how do we leave this, agenda item, or what's easier from a staff standpoint?
Well, we could do an agenda item called status report. We'll do an agenda item, and because there are so many overlapping issues, it would make sense for us to do a comprehensive item to include the issues that you discussed.
Okay.
Fantastic.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Since we're on the subject, when I went down to my leadership comp, my what's the new fact? The Institute for County Government meeting down in Gainesville. We talked a lot about cannabinoids, specifically CBD oils, and you talked about the measurements and being 0.03. And we talked a good bit about addressing positive tests that may come as a result of continued use of cannabinoids. So those that are under 0.03, but you use them on a regular basis, which could produce a positive test. I'm particularly interested in if we have an employee who uses CBD oil or any other cannabinoid, what if they test positive? Are we starting to put in place policies for those types of tests? So if we could actually look at that too in that same agenda item, I believe it fits in, because what I think the legislature just passed, and I think nationally just passed too as well, that point zero, I think it's 0.3 or 0.03 is the golden number when it comes to cannabis. And so I would like for us to have that discussion as well. Thank you.
All right, we're good with this agenda item, kind of all encompassing,
Well, I mean,
but it seems like
personnel,
it's getting
tinkle in the cup issue is not the same as what we're talking about with the public possession of.
It doesn't necessarily have to come back in the item, but I wanted to come back at some point because it could become an issue.
Yeah, okay. It's a personnel issue, different. I understand.
Yeah.
Commissioner Proctor, I think it absolutely is an issue, and I'm glad you brought it up, Commissioner Maddox. It's not just the CBD oil and how that builds up in the system, but if you have a legal medical marijuana card, that works for some professions and not for others. Drug-free workplace, workers' comp laws, I mean, this is the national issue. I was very happy to hear Holly Bell say that all of our medical marijuana dispensaries and companies in Florida are banked. They have banking, and so that is really unique in states across the country. This has got to be something the federal government takes up. Congress has got to move on this if we're going to solve all the drug-free workplace and all these other issues of a double standard, as you said. But I think for our own family, our county family, it's not bad to start looking at these issues, because it could come back and really harm one of our employees, and it's our responsibility to get ahead of it. So I appreciate that addition.
All right, so we have an agenda item. That's the way I heard this. Okay.
Okay, good.
Any other discussion?
Sure. My final point, Mr. Chairman, thank you, and Commissioners, thank you for your patience with me today. The Blueprint IA meeting will be on the 27th, and I'm asking if we get a little lift from this commission at that meeting for our both the fairground, which this commissioner has been on bended knee begging for years, and for our Northeast Park project, which we had made commitment, I thought we had some years ago. And at that IA, that we can reshuffle this deck and get the Northeast Park and get our fairground lifted to first tier projects. I think I know it's time that we could do that. I was very, and I don't understand, Commissioner Dozier, Maddox, and Minor, how the Bannerman project is in the CRPTA, I think it's in the top 10, Bannerman Road has moved, and that Bannerman has come from 0 and not even a word on the radar to a top 10, speaks to the flexibility and adaptiveness with which public policymakers can make. I use that merely as an example that on the 27th of this month, we have, with our consolidated backing, 2 projects that that are there that we should support. And I'm asking for the 27th if this body would be a team and lift these projects to top tier status. And then finally, the optional meeting that we might have for budget workshop, which says if necessary. I would like to note from the administration if that meeting is necessary. I felt that after today's successful meeting that I can't think of any issues for why we should hold that date available for another budget workshop. I have no other issues that, and we tied it up real nicely. I think that we should eliminate that and take that off the calendar. Is there any reason that
we have no, from a staff standpoint, we have no other items to present to you, and we are good up until our September public hearings.
Very good. And I think that, Commissioners, with that being said, that the July 9th budget workshop, we should, July 9th. Yeah, that's 2 days before the NACO meeting, and some of us may have gone out there a little sooner than others. I'm just saying. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner.
Might be a whole week out there, you know.
All right. Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our Vice Chair, a few months early there. I really do appreciate the conversation that just happened. There's so many moving pieces. I had been wanting to dig into this a little bit before I was comfortable making any kind of suggestion. I think the status report where we are is, or the agenda item, is going to be a good way to update us on all the issues and to try to move forward. So really appreciate that. I also wanted to go back, and I'm glad Jeremiah Murphy is still here. I think Sally left. The Community Connections program and the video that we saw, I had an opportunity to meet with folks from Community Connections a couple months ago, and I think your suggestion, Commissioner Deloge, to show the video to the school board and everything, I think I heard you say you're going there this evening. That was some of my perspective as well, that this is a program that has been at Palmer Monroe for a while. It would absolutely need the Leon County Schools as a partner, but it is also having an incredible impact. I got to meet one of the young men who, as you referenced, was a participant and then came back to volunteer, and it was just really incredible to hear his perspective, as well as the volunteers and the administrators, but to hear his perspective on what this program did for him. So I can posture this in 2 ways: an update on the full program so we know what's going on, or simply to say, I would like to know if and when our partners, particularly the city and the school board, move forward with Community Connections and talk about how county, sheriff's department, others can help support this effort. I think it is a collaborative approach, and it does meet the goals that we're working on in a lot of different ways. I was hesitant to bring this up before because I don't think this is a county program, and we certainly can't get into the schools without having the school board on board with that. So I'm not sure if I postured this in the right way for you all, but I would like to know, I guess I'll put this out, that if we can have any updated information on action taken by the school board or the city on Community Connections, and perhaps in September get at least a status update on where the program stands, and let us learn a little bit more about the impact and the potential for expanding this program in the future. Will that work, Mr. County Administrator?
We can do that.
Thank you. Do you need a motion, or is that?
I think so.
Sure, that's a motion.
Sure.
There you go. I second it. Okay.
There's a motion.
To get a status report on the communication.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Could I just ask a question? I'm interested in that too, and seeing some sort of a wrap-up of what you are requesting by whom, because I sort of feel the same way about the county's involvement. But along with the item, we were talking about if this is something that the Children's Services Council funding might possibly be able to embrace. And I'm not sure what the parameters would be, and I know that's not on the ballot until November 20th. But that might be a source of funding, because when you ask for 3 new employees, 3 new positions, I don't know if you noticed our county budget, but we don't do that much. We don't really add positions easily. That's a big ask, as you probably are aware. And I realize you were trying to divide it among, the schools and the city and the county. But funding for that is a big deal to do what you want to do with it, I think. So I would just like that possible approach of the Children's Services Council, up to $500,000 money that's available on that. So I think we're all supportive of the overall concept, but it's going to be kind of complex to figure out who does what, when, and I'm interested in seeing what the sheriff's office and his all-in program, it seems like this really is a piece of that. So I think there's a lot of potential and probably a lot of support, but just how you shape that is really what somehow we have to wrestle with. So glad you came here today. It was good.
All right. What else, Commissioner Dozier?
Good comments, Commissioner Lindley, and I will say from even the last couple years, I'm really impressed by the volunteers and coordinators of this program trying to figure out how to advocate for a program that on one end looks like a program at the Palmer Road Teen Center, which is a city program, and kind of elevate it and focus on it as a community program. So I think they're doing a lot of work, and I look forward to hearing what the school board and others decide or may discuss about this issue. So beyond that, I can't help but say this. So the pictures are coming up about EMS Press the Chest event, which is always a phenomenal event for us. And I had a moment at my house last night where someone started choking. And it was a little scary for the 3 of us for a moment. And it made us pause afterwards, and I talked about Press the Chest and that we need make sure our training is there. And I love that 18-year-old Walker started singing Staying Alive. It got locked in maybe Youth Leadership Tallahassee or something like that, and we've seen the images come up with everyone dancing and everything like that. It is just such an exceptional way to do training that will save lives. It saves lives. And so just at my dinner table last night, after a scary moment, to hear him start singing that song just really made me feel wonderful that he got it, and wanted to give many thanks to all of our folks in Leon County EMS and all of their partners for what an incredible job they do training our community and saving lives. So that was a good moment last night. The last thing, everyone's congratulated our new president of the state of Florida, so I will echo that. You did a great job, Commissioner Maddings. You also mentioned I serve on what was the foundation board, and we have rebranded, and we are now the Institute for County Government, and very excited about that. Appreciate a lot of the feedback, particularly Brent, your feedback on the public works training. That was a new program we did this year. So I'm really excited about that. Commissioner Minor, congratulations on getting through the first County Commissioner Certification Program. That is a lot of effort, and I know you'll do the advanced program next. I'm sure you will. And just really appreciate, as you all said, the leadership. I think you said it very well, Commissioner Minor, the leadership of this county in all ways, in fact. So thank you. It's going to be a great year. That's it, Mr. Vice Chair.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just real quick, I want to thank the board for their support of me being on the executive committee, I guess about 4 years ago. Without you guys' support of my campaign back then, I couldn't be sitting as president today, so I know I couldn't do it without you, so I want to take a quick moment to thank you. I want to thank those who were able to come out and support me, and thank Commissioner Proctor for his text message of support. When I was out we were in Orlando for the event. It was a special time. We had us a good time, but I learned a lot. For those of you who may be considering, I'm going to put a quick plug in for the Institute for County Government. I'm actually taking part in the Level 2 ACC courses, and that's actually where I learned a lot about the cannabis issue. Ms. Bell actually came up and made a presentation to that class. It is a great program to consider if you already have your ACC. Rick, you're not quite there yet, but you'll get there. If you have your ACC, you want to take into consideration. It's a great program to take part of. I learned a lot. I'm looking forward to going through the rest of the year, participating in that program. Again, just want to thank everybody and look forward to the year. Thank you, Ms. Vice Chair.
Congrats.
Thanks, sir.
Commissioner Lindley.
Yeah, I wanted to say congratulations too. I was sorry I missed the event, but I've always admired you as a team builder. You just represented that with the Planning Commission appointment discussion. And, I'm not a big football fan, but I figured you learn a little of that from all those years as a champion football player. So congratulations on that. I want to thank our Vice Chair for sitting in at the Leon Works Apprenticeship Luncheon. Really proud. Thank you for that. I know we had some, fine students learning a lot during that program this past year. Finally, not to rub it in, Rick, but last Monday I was in Liverpool, England at the Beatles Museum. So, yeah, sorry. I know. Had I known, I would have brought you a T-shirt. Because I'm kind of a groupie too, but so anyways, didn't seem irrelevant to me at all. That's all I have. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Commissioner. Mr. County Attorney. Wow, Mr. County Administrator.
Just congratulations to Commissioner Maddox. As Commissioner Maddox knows, his presidency began to pay off for Leon County even before we left the hotel. So I really appreciate it. So congratulations on behalf of all the county staff.
Yeah, I'll finish up here. I'll echo that. Congratulations. They've really raised the bar there at the Florida Association of Counties. I've got two asks, if it's okay. One of the things that for me has become kind of a real hot topic for me is where are we going overall as a community with bike and pedestrian and that whole thing. And if you look at, I've met with a number of staff, and that's one of the reasons I'm anxious to get back on the CRTPA. And if you look at what the city's doing and the county's doing and the IA's doing and all the different entities that are out there, it's very difficult to try and coordinate collectively in one form or fashion. And so I guess my ask is, could we have an agenda item come back that says, what are other communities doing in this environment? If you looked around and picked the top 5 or top 10 bike pedestrian communities in the country and said, how did you collectively figure out between your city government, your state government, your county government, in some cases the federal government, whatever else overlays that are in there, to have a collective vision. I'd like to think we're all pulling in the same direction, and to a large degree we are. I think we're probably better than most, but I think we can always do better. And I'd ask to see if there would be somebody be willing to put a motion together for that. Okay. Any comments on that? I mean, it's pretty straightforward, and I'm not asking to solve, split the atom here. Yeah, Commissioner Dozier?
Mr. Vice Chair, I love the idea, and the only thing I would add is I think this is one of those opportunities to pull the threads out of blueprints and CRTPA and city and county and pull them together. I think that's what you're saying.
That's absolutely where I'm going with this, yeah.
The city is working on multimodal district and revisions to that. We've got our bike ped master plans. We've got a lot of different moving pieces. So I love this idea. I think we could even have it, have a goal in mind with this of the International Mountain Bike designation. And there may be a similar designation for a biking community. I wonder if this is a way, I think where you are.
We actually are trying to get the bronze level for the mountain bike. So, yeah.
But pulling all of these different ideas together, having a more collaborative, I think we have a collaborative approach, but understanding where we are may help us achieve some of those designations more quickly. Yeah. So I think that could be a good byproduct of doing this as well as just increased availability of safe biking areas.
Yeah, Commissioner Lindley?
Just the safe biking areas. I mean, we still have quite a problem around here about being safe riding a bicycle, not on the trails so much, but if there's a way, I mean, if this could somehow bring forward a real understanding of how much cycling there is going on around here and somehow incorporate public safety, because we're still, I think just last week someone was killed on a bicycle, or maybe within the last few days in this community. We do not really have a very good record of safety for people who are bicycling on our streets, and I know that's separate from the trails, but somehow I think we have to acknowledge that and maybe find this as a way to launch a real marketing or educational, informational emphasis.
And that's a great example of a component of this overall thing, which is who would be in charge of that? Would you go to DOT and say, would you educate us, or would you go to IA, or would we take, I'm not sure. The problem is, I think everybody wants to do that. In that case, it's kind of an education thing. You're
right, and you don't want to lure everyone into thinking this is a great cycling community with wonderful trails when your chances of getting injured or killed are fairly good, So I think this is just an important part of it.
All right, so we have a motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Okay. And then the last thing, in the Florida Association of Counties Conference last week, there was a lot of discussion about a syringe exchange program, and I'm not sure of the applicability in our community from a volume standpoint, but I'd love to have staff maybe run the traps and say, is it applicable? Is it something that would be worth exploring? Based on what I've heard from Dade County and Palm Beach and some of the larger South Florida counties, it's really a transformational type of thing. And I know one of the earlier speakers was talking about HIV, and this is one of those areas. Again, I'm not sure of the prevalence in our community. Maybe Claudia at the Health Department could lean in, but if we could get some information back on that to see is it something worth pursuing, that'd be great.
Does that go through the Public Health Department or law enforcement or what?
Yeah, I get a combination. Yeah, so.
You got some staff report or agenda?
I'd like an agenda item just to have a kind of a discussion on it. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. I missed, do we have any citizens to be heard, or is that?
We do not.
Okay, no citizens to be heard. Yes, Commissioner Dozier.
My apologies, I forgot one item. In the last couple weeks, the city approved the MOU with NextEra Gulf Power for the transmission line, and with our strong support and that of Jefferson County, and I have to thank the city of Tallahassee, the negotiations of the city produced a alternative that would at least protect Tram Road residents in Jefferson and Leon and the Wasissa area. It does not protect everyone in Jefferson County along Wakena Highway. And when I say protect, it still would impact their homes. It is my understanding we've not had any response from DEP or the Department of Historical Resources. Is that correct? For the July meeting, I believe it'll be, there's a strong likelihood final contract negotiations between the city and Gulf will come back on their agenda the day after our commission meeting in July. I would like to request at least an update from you all, Ms. County Administrator, Ms. County Attorney, the status of correspondence with DEP and Department of Historical Resources. If we could reach out to them again, perhaps they'd be willing to give us some information at least on the permitting process. I'd also like to have an update on the U.S. Forestry permit application. I think that should be contemplated in the city agenda item, or city staff may be able to help us with that, just to ensure that our board understands where the pieces of this puzzle are at this point before we go into summer break. Is that, Ms. County Administrator, is that enough?
Yes, upon board direction of,
Yeah.
you want an agenda item to come?
You want an agenda item for that?
It could be a status update. I don't know if we need an agenda item. I think if it is enough information that we need to take action on anything, certainly at your discretion. I think a status report or an email would be sufficient.
We could do that.
Yeah.
Sure.
You need a motion, Ms.
No.
County Administrator?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Vice
All
Chair.
right, I think that brings us to the end. We've got public hearings that start at 6. We will be adjourned for a little better than an hour. Thanks.